There's a voice in your head. It speaks to you every day. It analyzes, judges, plans, repeats. And most days, you don't question it because it sounds like you. It's in your language, your tone, your rhythm. But what if I told you it isn't yours? What if the voice in your head was never the authentic you, but a carefully installed frequency, a pattern you didn't create but inherited? From the moment you're born, your brain is shaped by sound, not just music or speech, but vibration, your mother's voice, the tone of authority, the cadence of fear, the rhythm of trauma, the pitch of shame. These are not just emotions, they're frequencies. And those frequencies leave residue. They settle into your nervous system. They encode your thoughts. And eventually, they start speaking for you. You grow up believing that inner voice is you, but it's not. It's a remix of every voice you ever heard. The command to behave, the fear of being too loud, the guilt of saying no, the doubt in your own intuition, layer after layer, vibration after vibration, until your thoughts are not free but programmed. And what's more disturbing, the system counts on that. It knows that if it can control your inner monologue, it doesn't need to control your behavior directly, because you'll self-regulate, you'll limit yourself, you'll silence your own truth before anyone else has to. This is mental colonization, and it doesn't come with chains. It comes with repetition, thoughts that loop, narratives that grip, frequencies that hum beneath your awareness and steer your life. But once you hear it clearly, once you catch the frequency, you can't unhear it. And then something begins to shift. When did the voice begin? Not the first time you spoke, but the first time you were told how to speak. What was too loud, too soft, too emotional, too much? What words were bad? What tone was respectful? The programming didn't start in school. It started in the womb. Science knows this now. Even in the womb, the fetus responds to frequency. Mother's heartbeat, father's voice, arguments in the next room. Each vibration sends a message, not through language, but through resonance. You were learning how to feel long before you learned how to think. Then came the conditioning. Be quiet. Be nice. Don't cry. Don't talk back. And like a tuning fork, your brain adjusted its frequency to survive, to be loved, to stay safe. And every time you obeyed, the voice got louder. Not the outer voice, the one inside, the one that started mimicking all the others, the one that began to say things like, "You're not good enough. You shouldn't feel this way. Don't speak unless you're sure. Play it safe. Stay small." This voice doesn't scream, it whispers, it pretends to protect you, but really, it's protecting the system that installed it. It's a frequency-based firewall. Every time you get close to your truth, it triggers static, doubt, fear. So you turn back, you shrink, you obey, and over time, the voice becomes indistinguishable from you. So you stop questioning. You call it your gut feeling, but it's not your gut. It's your conditioning looping itself inside your nervous system. But here's the thing, if a voice can be installed, it can also be removed. If it can be tuned, it can be retuned. And that's where the awakening begins. The most effective form of control is the one that looks like self-discipline. Once the voice is internalized, the system no longer needs force. It doesn't need walls, guards, or orders. You become your own warden. You correct yourself before anyone else does. You scan your thoughts before speaking. You dim your light before stepping into a room. That voice says, "Don't say that. They'll laugh at you. You don't know enough. Stay silent." And you believe it because it sounds like you. But that voice isn't your truth. It's your trauma in costume, a broadcast looping in the background of your consciousness. Old signals replaying as present fear, ancient shame dressed up as logic, and yet most people defend it. They say, "That's just how I am." But how you are is not who you are. It's who you became to survive the noise. Now ask yourself, who benefits when you stay quiet? Who wins when you never speak your truth? Who profits when you constantly doubt your own knowing? The system doesn't want rebellion. It wants obedience disguised as free will. It wants you tired, overthinking, careful, because careful people don't change anything. They maintain the frequency they were given. But the moment you pause, the moment you observe the voice instead of reacting to it, something shifts. You move from the program to the presence, from the noise to the listener, from the echo to the source. And that shift, that's where your real voice lives, beneath the programming, beneath the fear, beneath the false you. If that moment of clarity hits something real in you, subscribe and tap the bell. Because your truth is not silent. It's just been buried under years of noise. You ever wonder why you can't sleep? Why your body tenses for no reason? Why certain memories feel louder than others? It's not random, it's resonance. Every thought has a frequency. Every memory, a tone. Every unspoken fear vibrates at its own pitch. And when left unexamined, those vibrations don't disappear. They embed in your muscles, your breath, your sleep cycles, even your dreams. This is the next level of the voice in your head. It's not just what you hear, it's what you feel without knowing why. You walk into a room and shrink, not because of who's there, but because of the frequency your body recognizes from childhood. You replay conversations hours later, trying to fix them, not because anything went wrong, but because your nervous system is tuned to self-doubt. These reactions aren't flaws, they're echoes. And the most dangerous ones don't come from words. They come from silence. The disapproval that wasn't spoken but felt. The tension that filled a room before anyone said a thing. The way someone looked at you when you expressed joy. Those moments get stored inside posture, breath, heartbeat. Your body becomes the amplifier for invisible frequencies, and your mind starts adjusting to match. It's not overthinking, it's over-resonating. You've become a broadcast tower for old signals. Signals that tell you who to be, how to feel, when to speak. Not because they're true, but because they're familiar. But familiarity isn't truth, and repetition isn't wisdom. It's just inertia. If your body feels heavy for no clear reason, if your thoughts race at night, if your joy feels like it's being filtered through static, you're not broken. You're still vibrating at someone else's frequency, and it's time to tune out. It doesn't happen loud. It never does. It begins in the quiet moments when the usual thoughts feel off. When you say something out loud and it tastes fake in your mouth. When your laughter feels like a mask. When your own voice in your own head suddenly feels like a stranger. This is the break. The moment when the programming starts to glitch. When you notice that your anxiety has a rhythm. That your doubts repeat the same phrases. That your thoughts are echoing something, not you. And in between those loops for a split second, you hear something else. It's not a sound, not a sentence. More like a stillness. A space between. A watcher. Something that doesn't panic, doesn't judge, just observes. Calm, steady, quiet. That's not the voice of trauma. That's not your ego, your fear, or your history. That's you, the one behind the thoughts. The one who's been listening this whole time, not controlling, just noticing, not reacting, just aware. And once you feel that presence, you can't unfeel it. That's when the voice begins to lose power, not all at once. It fights back, it turns up the static, it plays louder, faster. It tries to pull you back into the trance because it knows it's being seen, but it's too late. You've caught the difference between noise and knowing, between thought and truth, between programming and presence. And from here, everything changes, not because you force it, but because you stop believing the lie. The voice was never yours, but the silence behind it, that's where the real you has always lived. You've heard the glitch. You've seen the loop. Now comes the question. How do you shift the signal? Not by fighting the voice, not by drowning it out with fake positivity, and definitely not by pretending it isn't there. You shift it by changing what you tune into. Think of your awareness like a dial. You've been locked onto the fear frequency for years, broadcasting self-doubt, judgment, limitation. It became your default channel, but default isn't destiny. You can move the dial. The real voice, the one that isn't loud but clear, has always been broadcasting. You just never knew how to hear it because it doesn't speak in panic. It doesn't shout commands. It hums in stillness. It hums in truth. It hums when you stop trying to be someone. The more you drop into presence, the louder it gets. Not because it raises its volume, but because everything else begins to fall away. You'll feel it in small ways first. You speak, and your chest feels open. You pause, and your breath deepens instead of tightening. You say no, and don't explain. You rest, and don't apologize. And little by little, the voice you mistook for yourself fades into background static. It may still talk, but you no longer answer. Because now, you've tasted something older than programming. Something quieter than fear. Something more you than thought itself. And from that space, you start living differently. Not because you're trying to be spiritual, but because you're no longer available for noise. You don't speak to be heard. You speak because there's truth. You don't act from urgency. You move from alignment. And the world starts to respond to that frequency because energy doesn't lie, and neither do you, not anymore. You don't have to force anything anymore. When the false voice fades, there's no need to manage every word, no urge to impress, fix, or explain. You stop editing yourself for the comfort of others. You stop rehearsing before every conversation. You stop asking for permission to be real, because now you are real, not perfect, not polished, just honest. And that changes everything. People sense it. They can't always name it, but they feel something in your presence, an ease, a quiet, a kind of gravity that doesn't come from power, but from clarity. You're not trying to be anything. And that's what makes you magnetic. You don't engage every thought. You don't chase validation. You don't shrink when misunderstood. You've stopped performing. And in that silence, something new emerges. Your natural frequency. It's not loud. It doesn't compete. It doesn't bend to make others comfortable. It just is. And the more you live in that signal, the more the world around you begins to shift. Opportunities come that match your truth. Relationships deepen or fall away. Your decisions get simpler, not because life gets easier, but because you're no longer making choices from fear. You're tuning your life by vibration, not obligation. And that's when you realize, this whole time you weren't trying to find your voice. You were just remembering how to listen, not to the noise, but to the pulse beneath it. The knowing that speaks in stillness. And when that stillness becomes your anchor, no voice, no fear, no old story can shake it loose. The real voice doesn't argue, it doesn't prove, it doesn't beg to be heard, it simply waits. It watches you perform, panic, justify, apologize, then gently reminds you, you were never any of those thoughts. You were the one who noticed them. You were never the voice. You were the silence beneath it. That silence is not emptiness. It's presence. It's knowing. It's you, before language, before trauma, before identity. And once you meet that version of yourself, you can't go back, because now every thought must pass through that stillness. Every decision must align with that frequency, and anything that doesn't match falls away, not by force, but by resonance. You stop needing to be understood. You stop trying to figure it all out. You stop chasing your own reflection in other people's eyes. You just return again and again to the space behind the noise, the calm behind the panic, the witness behind the voice. And in that return, you finally hear your truth. Not because it's loud, but because this time you're ready to listen. Now ask yourself, and answer honestly in the comments, if your thoughts aren't you, who's the one hearing them?